Hey guys, so welcome back to Indirect excuse me, a little frog in my voice. So welcome back to Indirect Knowledge. So today I've got a very special tarot card reading, and this is for, we're just going to go with the first initial just for privacy and everything, but the first initial is C. So this is a tarot card reading for C, and she would like to know how Kevin feels about her. So we're just going to do the reading here. And just bear with me a bit. So the first thing I like to do is I like to do a shuffle. I'll be right back. First thing I like to do is the first shuffle, and it's just basically to clear the cards of anything that might be lingering on the cards. Even if they've sat for quite a while, I still find that it's good. It sort of like neutralizes the cards, kind of gives them kind of like fresh energy. And then what I like to do is once I'm done doing that, is I like to actually do another shuffle where I'm actually focusing in on the querent's question. And the querent is just the person that's actually asking the question or seeking the reading. Even if the question's about something else or someone else, and particularly for someone else, the person still asking for the reading would be considered like the querent. Okay, so now we're going to do another shuffle, and this time I'm just going to really focus in on the question about how does Kevin feel about C. And it's usually by the time I get to the shuffle, I'm a little, almost kind of like in a trance-like state, almost a little bit hypnotized or something, because I end up, I don't know, it's hard to put it into words, but it's almost like, this is almost like reactionary or almost kind of like automatic, or I'm not even quite aware of how I'm even shuffling the cards at this point, or what I'm actually doing, or what I'm actually even saying half the time. And it's kind of like if you've ever been standing in a long line and the line is moving up, and maybe like you were so caught up in your thoughts or things going on and you just kind of zoned out that someone has to kind of nudge you to kind of get you to move kind of forward with the line. It's sort of kind of like the same kind of thing that happens with me when it comes to the tarot card readings and that. And then I just sort of like automatically know when to cut the cards and everything. And it just, to me, that's the best way to do it. So what we're going to do today to find out more about Kevin and how he feels about C is we're going to do a 7-card tarot card reading. Now, just to kind of give you a little idea, let me go ahead and put these out as I'm doing it, because that'll actually help me kind of intuit things and get things coming in. So what I like to do is I like to start with kind of like, I like to look a little in the past, a little in the present moment, and a little into the future. Not a lot, but just a little bit, kind of directly related to the question being asked around the person that we're talking about. In this particular case, it's Kevin, and it's about their relationship with C, or, you know, kind of like whatever that dynamic entails. Kind of get some ideas or perspective on it. Then what I like to do is I kind of like to look a little bit deeper at the present moment to kind of find out like kind of what's going on in the present moment, kind of in a little bit deeper fashion. And then I like to kind of see where the querent is. That's the person that's asking for the reading. In this case, it's C. Kind of find her attitude, kind of her mindset, kind of where things are at with that. Then I like to look at sort of the answer first. And the answer is kind of like the key that unlocks the door. And the door would be like what the final outcome is. And the final outcome is the last card. That's the 7th card that we'll deal out. I'm calibrated as far as time goes to about 3 months in the past and 3 months into the future. That just simply means that there's a certain heaviness or energy that's weighted, that I'm sort of like, I know that when these kind of cards come up or this kind of energy starts to come about from the reading, that's about where the 3-month mark is. And depending on how heavy the energy, if it's heavier or if it's lighter, that would determine kind of in reference to that 3-month mark about where things are. And I've been doing this for so long that I kind of have a little bit in my mind an idea of like where that kind of particularly is. So let's dive right into the reading. So the first card that we have is 7 of Cups, okay? This is the past card, okay? I'm picking up about 2.5 months with this particular card. This is 7 is a little bit introspective. It's sort of, we're thinking about relationships and that. And this is also sort of sometimes referred to as like the wish card. In this particular placement, not so much of that. It's sort of like, it shows us kind of where things are at. Maybe like we're kind of envisioning or kind of imagining what it is that we're trying to manifest into our life or bring into our life and all. And so it's really the world is our oyster kind of thing. We can kind of bring in whatever we want to bring in. And that's kind of where our focus is. It's like there's things that we desire, things that we want, and how are we going to get those things? Well, it doesn't matter how they're going to come in. The thing that matters most is that we just have that ultimate desire for them. That's about 2.5 months out. So things were kind of like moving in that direction about 2.5 months back, we see. Now, in the present moment, we have this 4 of Wands. It's a very stabilizing kind of energy. And this, by the way, is a 7. 7 in numerology is really kind of that introspective, got to kind of, do for me kind of thing, kind of step back, rest, renewal, that kind of thing. Supplication, where you're kind of seeking things, that type of energy. This kind of energy, 4, more about stabilizing energy. Wands in particular is about action and creative action at that. So it's sort of like bringing things about in a very nice and stable way. It's kind of a stable manner. You also see some jubilation back here, some victory, almost like a ceremony or a celebration, marriage, perhaps, something along those lines. And that's really kind of like, you see like victory wreath and stuff, or that kind of celebratory deal. But it's a very stable kind of energy. It's like things are pretty good. Things are pretty stable in the current moment. So with relationship with Kevin, seeing Kevin, they're kind of in that good spot. It's kind of a good place to be at. It's very stable kind of energy. At least that's what we're seeing right now. That's kind of the surface level thing. That's kind of where the feelings are and the emotions are with things. So as far as like what Kevin's feeling and stuff, it's sort of reciprocated by sort of the same way that C is feeling about him. It's kind of like a union of sorts. It's kind of like a combined energy. We'll talk a little bit more deeper on that because there is something more to this. And before I get there, though, I have to kind of talk more about the future because I don't want to like scare you with the present moment quite yet. I'd rather kind of get to the future because that is really ultimately where things are headed. Best card in the deck. We got the sun here, brightest, sunny days ahead as far as the relationship and things go, and about the way that he feels about you. Things are only going to get better. Really important and all. And I'm going about 3 months out with this, 3 to 4 months out. It's a very powerful kind of energy. So it's radiant. We think of the sun as being very radiant. It's not something that's going to happen at exactly 3 months out. It's going to be sort of ramped up. And then even once we get to the 3-month mark and all, we'll start to really see the focus, a lot of that sunshiny focus, that really good kind of positive energy, good time of year, summer activities, just a lot of good energy like that. Could be like swimming pools. I'm kind of picking up something along those lines. Kind of makes sense. We're going to be moving into the summer months and all. Sunshine is pretty prevalent in the summer months and all, but it's going to be kind of a youthful kind of energy. And it's going to be one of those kind of, it will have a significance later on, whereas like memories and things are concerned. So the memories that you make over the next 3 or 4 months will be pretty significant in the sense of like the course of your life overall. And they will be stuff that you will remember as time goes on. These will be really good memories. Like you'll do things and probably participate in activities and things that you probably otherwise would never do. And because of that, the associations and things, the mental associations and emotional associations and things you make with these experiences will be some really good memories that you'll hold on to and cherish for a really long time. So enjoy them, embrace them. And I'm picking up to about the seventh month out with this particular card that will really see that radiant sunshine, that energy and all is going to really, be able to take place. So let's see today is May 1st. So we got May, June, July. And July would be the 3rd month, and August, September, October, November. So we're looking about to the wintry months, getting into the more, you get to about the end of November, end of October, somewhere about that ballpark, somewhere like in November-ish. November 17 is coming up for some reason. I'm not really sure where that's all about. There might be some kind of a significant event, something that might be happening like on November the 17th of this year for you. Something to do with this relationship or something to do with some circumstances around it or something. So just kind of maybe note that down and see what happens on that particular day. So we've got this is the sun. And so pretty good. Let's talk about the present moment, though, because I told you the bad news. It's not bad, but it's perceivably bad. Perceivably bad because we see this card. Kind of the heartbreak a hotel card, so to speak. It's kind of like the heartbreak. Sometimes this is about betrayal, and so Kevin, or you, or one of you guys, I kind of picking up. I'm not really picking up because I'm seeing a lot of equality here, like a lot of balance out. It could be either your energy or his energy, but one is maybe like betrays the other, or maybe starts to think in terms of being with someone else, or has kind of those thoughts or ideas. We see the swords here in the heart. Swords are really that thought kind of energy. So it's really kind of the thinking. You got to be careful what you think, because a lot of times what you think actually ends up manifesting into form. It's sort of the progression that we get with the tarot, especially like with the swords, where we kind of start with like a new idea or a new thought, and then we sort of just ramp that up until we get to the 10 of swords. And by the time we get the 10 of swords and all, it's sort of like that. Well, these ideas, these thoughts, all of this kind of business that I was thinking about and kind of focused on is starting to go by the wayside at that particular time, and new thoughts will eventually start to come back into play. But we're only at the 3 with this here. 3 is where we start to maybe question things, or start to wonder, or maybe something else comes into our purview, and we start to maybe think, maybe this person's kind of more interesting than Kevin, or Kevin might be thinking, well, maybe this person's a little bit more interesting than C. Doesn't mean you're going to shut that person out of your life or anything like that. It's just that potentiality for that could be a little bit of confusion on the horizon, things like that. So do not get too bothered by this card. It's not a bad card. It's just one of those cards where, it's sort of like sometimes you have to contemplate other things in order to appreciate what you really have. And I think that's sort of what the case is with this particular card. I think, if it's on Kevin's side, let's just hypothetically say if it's on Kevin's side, Kevin, may, have wandering eyes and maybe looking at somebody else, or flirting with someone else, or contemplating maybe at some point even being with someone else. But I think that will get shot down pretty quick, either in his mind or in the other person's eyes. And then at that point, he's just going to be like, you know what, I'm really kind of satisfied with the person I'm with. And that will actually strengthen the bond that you guys have. So as far as his thoughts about you, those thoughts will, multiply. Same thing if it's on your side. You might second guess Kevin and maybe like, he's a nice guy, but what about so-and-so over here? Or what about this other opportunity? So you might kind of maybe perceive, and then you're just, wait a minute, it's just not, that is not what I want. And then Kevin would really look good to you. And at that point, and then you're really like, you know what? Kevin's a really nice guy. I'm really lucky to have him in my life. And then that would really be kind of like the focus. And that would kind of increase your desire for Kevin, even more so than what it already is. So that's kind of what this card is really bringing into play. You might feel a little bit of betrayal, and the same thing could be said on the other way. He could even feel a little bit of betrayal. You got to be a little bit careful, because once those ideas start to get into the mind, and people start to kind of experience those kind of things, it becomes kind of tricky, and it can be troublesome, mentally fatiguing, and nobody likes to be in those kind of places or spaces in their mind. But the good news is that don't last very long, maybe up to a month or two, if that, maybe even a couple of weeks. We're looking about maybe about 3 weeks is about what I'm kind of picking up here. That kind of energy would maybe be surfacing, or kind of just like, let's move on. So we've talked about the past. We talked a little bit about the present moment. We talked a little bit about the future and stuff. Let's talk about the current. Let's talk about C in particular. This is where we can start to get some ideas. Okay. And this is the Lovers card. So this is where your mind is. And of course, Lovers is about relationships, this, that, and the other. No surprise that this comes up. The Lovers is also kind of like this pivotal crossroads in a person's life. It's sort of that idea of like, do I want to continue going it alone? Have my independence, my freedom, my ability to go and choose and pick and do whatever I want? Or do I want to kind of like union up? In other words, do I want to partner up and navigate this world together? But then that does require a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of compromise. And sometimes, we're not always ready or willing to do that. Okay, so it's sort of like have to make a decision one way or the other. And it's sort of like a crossroads. That's why I say crossroads. It's sort of kind of in that mindset state where it's like, okay, this looks interesting. It looks fun, but I'm apprehensive, and that apprehension can really be nerve-wracking a little bit sometimes. You're up and down with the emotions, up and down with the feelings, up and down with the thoughts, all that kind of business. But it can be really good for you, or it could go the other way. The choice really is up to you, though. So there's not a lot of guidance the tarot really gives, particularly with this particular card. In more cases than not, I would say that most people, when this card comes up, the reason it comes up is because they are really thinking long and hard about like finally making that commitment to move forward and to partner up. So usually when this card, not always, but usually when this card comes up, it's because the person's mind is finally to that point where they're about ready to say, you know what, I've been by myself for long enough, or, you know, I've been traveling this path long enough. I really want some company. I really want to partner up. I'm really ready to make a commitment, make a vow, make a promise to myself and to this other person that we can do this together. So we have that. That's kind of where the mindset card is right now. Let's talk about the quick answer, and then we'll jump right over to the outcome of all of this. So the quick answer is this 3 of Wands. Threes are very narrative. It's a kind of a telling of a story in a sense. And in this way, you know, notice the person's back is to us. You know, we're looking at this person, but we're also looking in the same direction as this other person. It's sort of like that vast expanse. There's a lot of ground to cover, you know, and there's 3 of these wands here, you know, and one of them we're holding on to as kind of like our walking stick, so to speak. The other is about relationships. 2 is about balance, relationships. But when you have 3, it's sort of like, it's kind of unstabling in a sense, because we're kind of like, it's kind of that energy of like, okay, what direction do I go? What decision am I making? And in that case, we can really start to take action, but it's pretty quick, you know, not exceedingly fast, but the action that we take is pretty like, we're just going to start walking off into this direction unknown, kind of walking off into the blind and to see what kind of happens. That's sort of the story. That's sort of like, and that's kind of where we sort of begin at. Excuse me, guys, I got a little frog in my throat today. But anyway, so this is kind of this energy. So it's really, the answer here is to kind of trust. You know, it's really that kind of take action and trust and to go with the flow. Really, that's the story. Let's look at the overall outcome, like what this whole entire reading is really all about. And we have the 2 of Cups. Cups all about relationships. We had that in the very beginning of this reading when we had that 7 of Cups that we talked about, was kind of that thinking about relationships and that. This 2 of Cups is really balanced. It's finally where things start to really balance out. Anything to do with 2 is really about the balance of scales. It's also about duality or polarity. So on one side we have this, on the other side we have this, but it's a coming together of 2 people, and it's really a good sign for the relationship overall. So how do we answer this question? You know, how does Kevin feel about you? We've said quite a bit, you know, and hopefully by now you're starting to kind of get this vision or this sense of kind of like where Kevin's mindset is and kind of where the dynamic of the relationship is at and how you fit into that as well. And that's kind of where this is at. In the end, we have a relationship, a partnership. So it looks pretty good to me. If that's what you want, of course. What's the answer to getting that, though? It's kind of this here where, you know, you just kind of like, you say, okay, I'm not following someone else's course per se. I'm going out and I'm taking action. I'm going to do this thing. I'm ready and I'm just going to pursue it. And that's really where this is at. This 3 is that narrative. You're going to create your own narrative about this, like whatever direction you decide to take with it, really positive. How do we know that? You got the most positive card in the entire tarot deck. Out of 78 cards, you actually got the Sun by no mistake. This is a really great card, and it's actually going to brighten everything with this entire reading, like from the past, the present moment, until into the future. But the outcome is in the whole 9 yards. What that story will entail, it's going to brighten it and be very good, beautiful, and bright kind of thing. So your energy is good. His energy is good. I sense overall that things are going to be pretty good with this relationship and that you guys are headed in a pretty good direction and that you guys really do both respect each other. And there's sort of that equality, that balance that I talked about a little bit ago. Okay. So I hope this tarot card reading helps. If you have any questions or anything, of course, reach out to me. I love you guys, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Indirect Knowledge. Have a great weekend, everybody.